Hey there everyone, Ramesh here, back again with another video. In this video I am going to show you how to build a simple full stack application using React.js and Spring Boot. And we are going to use React hooks in React application. Alright, great. So as we know that React.js is very popular library for building user interfaces, and we also know that Spring Boot is a very popular framework for building RESTful web services and microservices. So if you can see here, React.js Spring Boot REST API example tutorial. So this is the tutorial video that I have already published on my YouTube channel a year back. And in this example or a video or a tutorial, I haven't used React hooks. So in this tutorial, I haven't used React hooks. Okay, so I have used plain React.js to build a full stack application using React.js and Spring Boot. And many of you have commented like I need to use a React hooks, right? So nowadays many developers are using React hooks in a React application to perform different operations without using React component, class component. All right, great. So in this video what we'll do, we'll use React hooks in React.js application, and we are going to also use the latest version of Spring Boot and latest version of React.js. Okay, so if you have a requirement to build a full stack application using latest release of React.js and latest release of Spring Boot, then this video is very useful, guys. Okay, and I will show you step by step, line by line coding how to integrate a React application with Spring Boot application. Okay, take a look into React Spring Boot full stack application architecture over here. So this is simple client server architecture. And at a server side we have Spring Boot application, at a client side we have a React application, and in a React application we are going to use React hooks. Okay, React hooks basically allows us to use state and React features without using class component. As we already know that in a React we have two types of component, right? Class component and functional component, and we use state in a class component. So we cannot use state in a functional component. So React hooks allows us to use state in a functional component. Okay, so we'll see how we can use React hooks to use state in a functional component. Okay, this is a very important, guys. So Spring Boot application exposes the REST APIs, and React application basically consumes the REST APIs. All right. And React is just a library for building user interfaces, and it does not concern with HTTP. So whenever you want to make a AJAX call or REST API call from the React application, you have to use a third-party HTTP library. Okay, and in this example we are going to use Axios HTTP library. So Axios HTTP library is basically it's kind of popular HTTP library to make the AJAX calls or REST API calls. Okay, so in our React application we are going to use Axios HTTP library to make a REST API calls. In a Spring Boot application we are going to expose a simple REST API, and we are going to store data in S2 database. So we are going to use S2 database because this is a very simple example, guys. If you want to use MySQL database or any other databases, then there are a lot of videos out there in my YouTube channel. You can go ahead and you can check it out. Okay, great. So we are going to see how we can integrate our React application with Spring Boot application using Axios library. All right, great. Now what we are going to build in this tutorial? So we are going to build two projects, Spring Boot backend, React frontend. And Spring Boot backend project will expose the REST APIs. React frontend application will basically consume the REST APIs. And if you can see here, this is a screenshot of our outcome. I mean, in a React application we are going to create a component which will populate the data, employees data. Spring Boot application will basically expose get employees REST API, and React application will consume that REST API and populate all the employees data on the page. Okay, so we are not going to create a full crude operations in this tutorial. I am going to plan a complete series on that. But in this video we are going to focus on how to use React hooks and how to integrate our React application with Spring Boot, and we are going to use a latest version of React.js and Spring Boot. So these are the few major points we are going to highlight in this tutorial. So what is a prerequisites? Well, you need to have a basic understanding of HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and you need to have basic understanding of React, and Spring Boot. So make sure that you have installed Node and npm on your machine. Okay, great. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's quickly create a Spring Boot application at a backend, and let's expose a simple REST endpoint. And later on we'll create a React application to consume that REST API, and we are going to use React hooks to use a state in a functional component. Okay, great. Let's head over to IntelliJ IDEA and let's quickly create a Spring Boot project to expose the REST API. In order to create a Spring Boot application, we are going to use Spring Initializer. Well, go to the browser, in a new tab just type start.spring.io. So this will open Spring Initializer. Now in a project section we have Maven and Gradle project, so keep Maven project selected and keep language Java as a selected over here, and Spring Boot keep selected version, that is 2.5.3. so this is the latest version of Spring Boot and it is recommended by Spring Boot team. So let's keep 2.5.3. don't choose snapshot because they are not stable. And in a project metadata section we are going to fill up the project metadata details. So let's give group as net.java guides. So I'm going to give my website name, that is netjavaguides.net. so you can give any group ID that you want, and artifact ID I'm going to give a name as Spring Boot backend. Alright, a name is same as the project name. Description I'm going to give here something like Spring Boot backend project, something like that, backend application. And here I'm going to use package name as net.javaguides.springboot. Perfect. And choose packaging as a jar over here and Java 16.11. so I'm going to use Java 16, which is the latest release of Java as of now. You can use either Java 11, Java 8 as a JDK installation in your machine. Okay, perfect. So go to add dependencies over here, and here we are going to choose the dependencies. So let's go ahead and let's use Spring Web Starter dependency. So we are going to build a REST APIs. So for that we are going to use Spring Web Starter dependency. Alright, and we are going to use S2 database. So go ahead and pick up S2 database dependency, and we are going to use Lombok library to reduce the boilerplate code. So go ahead and choose Lombok library over here. Okay, perfect. And we are going to use Spring Data JPA to connect to the database and perform different database operations. For that we are going to use Spring Data JPA starter dependency. Okay, so these are the dependencies are enough to create a REST API which will talk with the database at a backend. Alright, now go ahead and click on generate. So this will generate Spring Boot application as a zip file. Now open this zip file in a folder and just extract it. Perfect. Now open IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, I have opened IntelliJ IDEA over here, and I am going to open an existing project in IntelliJ IDEA. So click on open over here and then go to downloads. So my project has downloaded in a downloads folder, so I am going to choose a project from downloads folder. So here is a Spring Boot backend, and I am going to open this project in IntelliJ IDEA. Click on open. Alright, great. So look at here, this IntelliJ IDEA will take a couple of seconds to download all the dependencies from the internet, and it will set up the Spring Boot application in IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, let's wait a couple of seconds. Alright guys, we have successfully imported Spring Boot backend project in IntelliJ IDEA. Now what we'll do, we'll create a simple REST endpoint. Okay, so go ahead and expand our Spring Boot project and expand search folder and then main folder, and then go to main package. And here within a main package we are going to create one package. Let's call it as entity, and within entity package we are going to create a class. Let's name it as employee. Okay, so we are going to use simple employee entity here, and let's go ahead and let's add some fields to employee class. Private long ID, and then private string first name, and then private string last name, and then private string email. To keep it simple, I'm going to keep these 4 fields in an employee class. Okay. Now let's go ahead and let's use Lombok annotations to create a getter setter methods automatically. So we're not going to generate getter setter methods and constructor for this employee class. In fact, we are going to use Lombok annotations. Okay, so we'll reduce a boilerplate code. Okay, so go ahead and let's use add getter annotation to generate a getter methods for these private fields, and we are going to also use add setter Lombok annotation to generate a setter methods for these private fields, and we are going to also use no argument constructor to create a no argument constructor for this class, and also all argument constructor. And I use a builder pattern basically to create object of the classes. So I prefer using builder pattern, because if class has a lot of fields, then we need to create a lot many constructor. To avoid that, I usually prepare using builder pattern. So I use builder annotation here. Okay, now we have created a simple class. Now we are going to use JP annotation to map our class to relational database table. For that, we are going to use add entity annotation to make this class as a JP entity, and also we are going to use add table annotation to provide a table name for this entity. Let's give a table name as employees, and we are going to define the primary key by using @id annotation over here, and we are going to also provide primary key ID generation strategy. For that, we are going to use @generated value annotation over here, and it has a strategy attribute, and here just pass identity as primary key generation strategy. Perfect. Now we are going to use add column annotation to provide a column details for this field. It has a name attribute, and we are going to use column name here as first underscore name. You can also specify not null property for this column. For example, null label equal to false. So this will basically add a null label not null attribute for this column. Okay, so similarly we are going to use add column annotation to provide a column name for last name. Okay, name equals to last underscore name. All right, and if you don't specify add column annotation, then JP is not enough to give a column name as the field name. So typically we represent a column name something like this. If there are 2 words in a single word, then we typically use underscore in a column name, right? For that, I have just used add column annotation to give a column name for this field. Okay, and here email sounds good as a column name, so I don't add column annotation. Okay, great. Now save the file. Now it's time to create a repository to store and access the employee data in the database. For that, we are going to create a separate package for that. So right click new and then choose package, and just give package name as a repository. Hit enter, and right click on repository package, new, and then choose Java class and choose interface here, and let's give interface name as employee repository. Hit enter, and go ahead and extend this interface from JPA repository interface. Okay, and for JPA repository interface, we are going to pass 2 arguments. First argument is type of the entity, and second argument is type of the primary key. Okay, perfect. So JPA repository basically provides us a CRUD methods to perform CRUD operations on the employee entity. Okay, great. So that's it. I mean, we don't have to write any code to interact with the database. I mean, to save the employee, to get the employee, okay, to delete the employee, update the employee. So JPA repository will provide all the methods to perform all the CRUD operations with database on employee entity. Okay, great. Now let's go ahead and let's create a package, and let's create a controller within that package, and simply develop one REST API. So right click on main package here, new, and then choose package and give package name as controller. Now within a controller we are going to create a class. Let's give class name as employee controller and hit enter, and let's annotate this controller class with add REST controller annotation. So once we add this annotation to this class, then this class acts as a Spring MVC REST controller, and which will capable to handle a web request. Okay, now we'll add one more annotation, that is add request mapping annotation, and we define a base path here, that is /API. Alright, and here we are going to auto hire employee repository, because we are going to use employee repository methods, right? And let's use add auto hire annotation here. Perfect, right? Now let's go ahead and let's create a method public list. So this method is going to return a list of employees, so list, and then pass employee as a type, and then just give method name as fetch employees. Okay, very simple. And let's annotate this method with add get mapping annotation, so that this method will handle a get request, and just define the REST URI path here, that is employees. Perfect. Now this REST API should return a list of employees, right? Just call employee repository object and then find all method. So look at here, find all method returns a list of employees. Okay, go ahead and call find all method. That's it guys, very simple REST API. Alright, we have created a simple REST API, and we have exposed this REST API from our Spring Boot backend application, right? Now we need some records in a database table. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll write some logic to save few records in a database table, so that whenever our React application will use this REST API, this REST API will basically return all the employees from the database table. Alright, great. So basically we don't have to configure anything in application.properties file, because Spring Boot will automatically configure S2 database data source. Okay, Spring Boot will automatically configure a data source for S2 database, so we don't have to configure any URL, username and password in application.properties file. Okay, great. Now go to application class, and here we are going to write the logic to insert few records in a database table. For that we are going to use command line runner. Okay, so basically we use command line runner to run our logic at once while application startup. It has a run method, so we can go ahead and we can implement a run method. So this run method will run once while while executing our Spring Boot application. So before writing logic in a main in a run method, we'll first inject employee repository, because we are going to use employee repository methods here, employee repository, and we are going to auto hire it by using add auto hire annotation. Perfect. Now here I am going to create few employees and insert in a database table. So it's employee, and let me call it as employee 1. Okay, and we are going to use a builder pattern, so employee dot builder, and then let's give first name as Ramesh and last name, let's say Fatare, and email ramesh@gmail.com. okay, and let's call build method. Okay, so this will build object, that is employee 1 object. Now let me simply copy this line of code, okay, and simply paste it here, and let's change the object from employee 1 to employee 2, and change the first name and last name and email accordingly. Let's say first name as Tony, last name as Stark, email as tony@gmail.com. Okay, so this is the second. Now let me copy and paste here again, so that we will create one more employee, employee 3, and let's say post name as John, last name Sina, email as sina@gmail.com. Now we have created 3 employees. Now we want to save these 3 employees, right? For that, what we'll do, we'll call employee repository and then call it save methods and just pass employee 1. Okay, so similarly employee repository dot save and pass employee 2. Okay, similarly employee repository and dot call save method and then pass employee 3. Okay, perfect. So you can also call save all method, but you need to first create a list and then you need to pass. Okay, so this is how we save the individual objects in a database, by using save method. Alright guys, now let's go and let's run our Spring Boot application and let us test the REST API that we have exposed. Okay, so here I'm going to run the Spring Boot application, run Spring Boot using main method. Alright guys, our Spring Boot application is up and running in an embedded Tomcat server on port 8080. Now let's head over to the browser. In a browser, just type localhost 8080/API/employees, and there we go. We got a success response from the REST API. Alright guys, so REST API has returned a JSON to the client. It means that we have successfully built a REST API which returns a list of employee objects to the client. Alright, perfect. So far we have created Spring Boot application at a backend, and we have built a simple REST API which returns a list of employees to the client. Okay, now what we will do, we will create a React application at a front end side, and React application will consume this REST API and it will populate the employees data on the page. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's open VS Code IDE and let's quickly create a React application, and we are going to use React hooks in React application. Okay, so in order to create a React application, we are going to use create a React app CLI tool. Okay, so this is a very important tool guys to create a React application. So look at here, create React app is a CLI tool, and it is an official supported way to create a single page React applications. It offers a modern build setup with no configuration, and it provides few commands which we can simply run and create a React application and run a React application. So look at here, npx create React app followed by name of the project and then npm start. So these are the couple of commands that we can quickly use to create React application and quickly start the React application. Okay, so if you can just scroll down, you can see here a couple of options to create a React application. Okay, you can either use npx, you can use npm or yarn. Okay, so npx I am going to use because it's the simplest way to create a React application. Alright, great. Now let's head over to the VS Code IDE and let's use npx create React app followed by name of the React application to create a React application. Okay, let's jump into Visual Studio Code IDE and let's quickly create a React application. Well, so look at here, we have a React workspace folder. So I have created a React_workspace folder on my file system, and I have opened VS Code IDE in React_workspace folder. So similarly, you can go ahead and you can create a React_workspace folder on your file system and open VS Code IDE within this folder. Okay, great. Now what we'll do, we'll create a React application using terminal. So go ahead and click on terminal over here and click on new terminal. Alright, so before creating a React application, make sure that you have installed Node and npm. So in order to check the Node version, just type the command node-v. Okay, so look at here, the Node version 14.16.3, And similarly, you can check the npm version like npm-v. Alright, so once you have installed node and npm, then you are good to create a React application. Alright guys, great. Now we are going to use the command npx followed by create react app followed by name of the project. So I am going to give project name as React Frontend. So you can give any project name that you want, but to keep it simple, I am going to use a generic name, that is React Frontend. Okay, go ahead and hit enter. So this will take a couple of seconds to create the React application and configure the React application. So let's wait a couple of seconds. So look at here, our React application is successfully created. Now let's go ahead and let's use these commands, cd and then followed by name of the project React Frontend, and hit enter. So make sure that you are in a your project, okay, React Frontend project, and then only you can type the command npm start to start the React application. Okay, so just type npm start and hit enter. Look at here, React application is up and running on port 3000. So basically React application is running in local development server, which is running on port 3000. So let's head over to the browser and just access the React application using localhost :3000. Okay, so I'm going to go to the browser and here just type localhost 3000 and there we go. Our React application is up and running. Okay, now what we'll do, we'll go through the React application project structure. So go to VS Code ID, and if you can see here React workspace, so just expand React workspace and expand React Frontend. Okay, now let's go through the important files of our React Frontend application. So look at here, node_modules folder. Well, basically whatever the packages and libraries that is generated by npm or yarn, that will be saved under node_modules folder. Okay, so whatever the packages that is created by npm, that is node package manager, that will be kept under node_modules folder. And we have a public folder. Within a public folder here, index.html file. So this is a very important file guys. So as we know that we are creating a single page React application, so we should have only one HTML file, right? So index.html is the single file in our React application which internally render all the components. For example, look at here the div. So this is a very important div guys. So whatever the React component that we have in our React application, that will be rendered within this div. Okay, div with id root. Okay, just remember the id root. So this root we will be using in other files. Okay, so this is the single HTML file. It serves our React application as a single page, and this div will be dynamically will replace the components. Next we have src folder. So within a src folder we keep all the components, JavaScript, global JavaScript files, CSS files, etc. Okay, so usually we do all the development within a src folder. Next comes package.json file. So within a package.json file you can see the React.js dependencies, with its version. So we are using latest release of React. You can see the React version 17.0.2, and here are some scripts to run the React application, to build the React application, and to test the React application. Okay, so these are the very important scripts and dependencies that you can just have a look into. And look at here our application version, our application name. Okay, great. And just open src folder, you can see a bunch of files, and here index.js. so this is a very important file, and this is the entry point of our JavaScript. Okay, and it has a React DOM.render method. So this render method basically render app component. So app component is our root component in our React application, and here we have a root. So in index.html file we have a div with id root, right? So that div will be retrieved here by using document.getElementById, and then app component will be rendered inside a div with id root. Okay, so I hope you understood how the React will render the components. Okay, so this is the main, okay, React DOM.render. So this is the main render method which will render the components, and app is the root component, and within a app root component will import our React components. For example, if you go inside app.js, we have app component which is a root component. Okay, and whatever the components that we will create in React application, that will be used inside this root component. Okay, great. And we have index.js, index.css file. We basically keep all our style, the CSS related stuff in this file. Alright, so these are the few important files that you need to know. Now what we'll do, we'll install Bootstrap CSS library in our React application. So we are going to use Bootstrap CSS library, which is quite popular library for styling our web pages. Okay, so go ahead and open new terminal. So I'm going to click on plus icon here, which will create a new terminal. Okay, so look at here, total we have two terminals, node and second one, this one. In a node terminal, the React application is running, and in this terminal we are going to install the libraries. So first we'll install the Bootstrap library, and then we'll install Axios library. So in order to install the Bootstrap library, we need to first go inside the project. So just type the command cd react frontend, hit enter, and then type the command npm install bootstrap -- save. So this will install Bootstrap libraries in our React application. Okay, so basically you can see node_modules folder, right? So within this folder you can find the Bootstrap related libraries. So let me refresh, and let's go ahead and let's check the Bootstrap libraries. So here we have Bootstrap folder, which is created under node_modules folder, and within a Bootstrap folder you can see dist folder, within a dist folder CSS, and within a CSS you can see all the Bootstrap related CSS files, and within a JS folder you can see all the JS related Bootstrap JS related files. Now what we'll do, we'll import bootstrap.min.css file. Okay, just go ahead and copy this path, and this path we'll use in our React application. Okay, so what I will do, I will just minimize this and go to index.js file, and here we are going to import within a single quote, just type bootstrap, and then we have a dist and then CSS. So this is the import, right? Some typo here, import. Okay, and within a CSS folder we have bootstrap.min.css. okay, great. Just save the file. Now we have successfully installed Bootstrap and imported in our React application. Now what we'll do, we'll install Axios library. So as I mentioned earlier, React is not concerned with HTTP library, right? So React basically is a plain JavaScript library which will only focus to build a user interfaces, which is not concerned with HTTP. So we have to use HTTP library in React application to make a JAX call or a REST API call. Alright, so in our example we are going to use Axios HTTP library to make a REST API call in our React application. For that we are going to install the Axios library. So go to terminal again, just type the command npm add and then followed by Axios, and hit enter. So this will install and add Axios to our React application. Okay, great. Now let me just minimize this and head over to src folder, and within src folder what we'll do, we'll create some folders. So first we'll create components folder, components. Within a components folder we keep all our custom components, and within src folder we are going to create one more folder. Let's call it as services, So within a services folder we keep all the JavaScript classes that contains a REST API or client related code. Okay, so whatever the REST API that you call from the React application, that source code will keep under services package. Okay, services folder. So within a services folder we'll create a file and let's name it as employee service.js, and in this JS file what we'll do, we'll write the logic to call the REST API. So first of all we'll import Axios, because we are going to use Axios library, right? Import Axios from Axios. Okay, so we are going to use Axios to make a REST API call. After that what we'll do, we'll create a class. Let's give class name as employee service. Okay, simple. We'll create a constant to store the REST API URL. Okay, let's say const, and then the REST API URL we will store in some variable. Let's give variable name as employees REST API URL, something like this. Okay, and here we'll provide the value as REST API URL. http localhost 8080/API/employee. So this is our REST API URL. Okay, so within a class we are going to write the logic to call this REST API. So pretty simple, just create a method get employees, and this method should return a response of the REST API. So return, and then call the Axios object. Here it has a get method, so simply call get method and just pass the URL. So the URL is employees REST API URL. That's it guys, very simple, isn't it? So we are just making this REST API call, and the HTTP method is get. Okay, and this is the method which returns the response of this REST API. Okay, so next what we'll do, we'll export the object of this class, so that that object will be used in respect to components. Just call here export default new and then employee service. So make sure that you will create object of the employee service and then you export here, so that we can use directly the object in the component. It's very important guys. Just save the file and go to components folder. Within a components folder we'll create a component. So go ahead and create a file here, that is JavaScript file. Let's give file name as employee component. Just provide the extension JS. So you can also use JS or JSX, but I will keep extension as .js. Okay, hit enter. Now the important thing here is we are going to use React snippets. Okay, we are not going to write the code manually here. In fact, we are going to use snippets. So in order to use snippets we need to install the extension. So what you need to do is go to the here extension menu. Okay, and here you can see ES7 React Redux and GraphQL React Native snippets. So go ahead and install this extension. So this extension is really useful guys, and look at here the 5-star extension, and look at here the install count. Okay, so I already installed this extension, so I am going to use this extension to create the React snippets automatically. Okay, so this will save a lot of time guys. So I highly suggest you guys to install this snippet first. Okay, this extension first. Alright, so I hope that you have already installed or you are going to install this extension. Okay, so once you install that, go to the employee components here, and here we are going to use React snippet to create a functional component. Okay, so just remember a few points here. In React we have two types of components, right? Functional component and class component, and we typically use state in a class component, and we cannot use state in a functional component. All right, so in order to use a state in a functional component, we should have to use a React hooks. Now what we'll do, we'll create a functional component and we use a state within a functional component with the help of a React hook. Okay, so go ahead and just type the command rfc. So this is the React code snippet, guys, and rfc command will create a snippet for React functional component. You can read the description here, create a React functional component. So go ahead and click on it, and you can see here functional component is created. And just get rid of this export default, and at the end just write export default. So this is the standard basically we use employee component. Okay, now what we'll do, we'll use a state within a functional component with use state hook. Okay, so just type use state. Okay, and this React snippet also provides a syntax for use state hook. Go ahead and just click on it, and you can see here a syntax is generated for use state hook. Okay, and just concentrate here the meaning of this syntax. Constant followed by, here we have two parameters. First is a state, and then this is a method in order to set the value of state, and this is a use state. Okay, so this is a hook name, and here the initial value of the state. So in a functional component, if we use a hook, use state hook, then this is the syntax. Okay, so this is the state, and this is the method to set a value to the state, and this is the initial value of the state. So let me quickly create a class component here so that you can just get the idea. React class component here. Okay, and within React class component we create a constructor, right? Constructor. Okay, and here we create a state, right? For example, let's say employees, and we initialize the state. Okay, so this is how we create a state object and we initialize in class component. So similarly, if we want to use state in a functional component, then what we need to do is we need to use a use state hook. Okay, and in this case the state is employees. Okay, so let me copy this employees and paste it here. And in class component we use set set state method to set the value to the state, right? So in React hook we have a method. We can define our method like set employees. Okay, and initial value here is this, okay, empty array. So initial array is empty array. Okay, I hope you got the idea in a class component how we define the state, and in a functional component how we define the state using React hook. Okay, great. So let me quickly remove this. Okay, great. So let me save here. Now what we'll do, we'll create a method over here. Let's say const, and just give method name as get employees. Okay, and let's use arrow function, JavaScript arrow function here. And within this method we're going to call employee service object. It has a get employees method, and once we make the REST API we need to handle the response. For that, let's call then method here. Okay, and just pass the response object to it, response. Okay, so this is the response object, right? So let me grab in a brackets. Okay, so let me write the within a curly braces. Within the curly braces we need to write the logic to set the response to the state. So we have a set employees method, right? So we can use this method to set the value to the state. So for that, let me call here set employees, and we have a response, right, and then data. Okay, I hope understood. So set employees method, so this set employees method we are using to set the value of the response to the state. Okay, got it. So here what I will do, I will simply put the console log here, console.log, and then response dot data. Pretty simple, right? Great. So what we have done, we have created a method over here. Within the method we are calling employee service method. Okay, so once this employee service will make a REST API call, then the response will be handled over here. Okay, and that response will be set to the employee state. Now what we'll do, we'll use one more React hook, that is use effect. Okay, we use effect hook to make the Ajax call. Okay, so probably you know that in a React class component we use component did mount, component did update methods, right? So lifecycle methods to make to just provide a side effect for the components. So similarly in functional component we can use effect hook to provide side effects. Okay, side effects for functional component. For example, in a class component, let me create a class component quickly here, and okay, so this is the class component, and within a class component we use component did mount method, right? So this is a lifecycle method, and within this method we typically make the REST API call or Ajax call. Okay, so this is how we write a component did mount method to make Ajax call or REST API call in class component, right? So similarly, if you want to make a REST API call, or if you want to provide a side effects for your functional component, then we use effect hook. Okay, I hope you got the idea. Let me remove this code. So I am just trying to compare with a class component here, so that you will get an idea how to use hooks, right? Now what we'll do, we'll use effect hook. So here what we'll do, we'll basically call this get employees method, so that so get employees method internally make the Ajax call, right? So we can go ahead and we can call this method over here. So let me remove it, and let me call here get employees. Pretty simple, guys. So far we have used use state and use effect hook. Okay, so within a use effect hook we called get employees method. So get employees method internally makes Ajax call or REST API call and get the response, and that response will be set to the employee state. Okay, so once we get the data from the server, we need to populate that data, right? So in order to populate that, we need to write the logic, that is JSX. So here you can see a return. Within a return we have a div. So all the JSX logic we will write here within a div. Okay, so what I will do, I will add one class here, that is CSS class. So in React we use a syntax to add a CSS class like this. Okay, class name and then Bootstrap class name, that is container. So container is basically a Bootstrap class name. Okay, and within this div what we'll do, we'll add h1 tag to add the header, and let's align the header at a center, class name, and let's say the CSS class name text center. Okay, and let's call header as employees. Okay, employees list, something like that. Alright, after header we will create a table to display the employee data table, and let's add CSS classes to the table. Okay, so let's I think the class name is table stripped, right? Yeah, table hyphen stripped. Okay, so within a table let's create a table header, table header, and within a table header we create table column, right? th. So before th we have table row, that is tr. Alright, and within a tr we create table header, that is column. Let's say employee id. We first column displays employee id, and second column, let's say employee first name. Okay, so let me quickly copy this and paste 2 times. Let me change quickly. This is the employee last name, okay, and this is the employee email. Perfect. So we have created a table header with 4 columns. Okay, now just go here. After table header we need to create a table body, right? Table body. Within table body we create a row, dynamic row, which will display the list of employees from the employee state object. Okay, great. So here I'm going to write the logic. Within a curly braces we have employees, right? Employee state object, and then we are going to use map method here, that is map method, to just iterate over employees, array of employees. So here I'm using map to just iterate over an employees array and display each object from an array into a table. Okay, so go ahead and just get single object from the employees. Let's call it as employee, and then what we'll do, we'll create a table row, and we need to define the key for this table row that should be unique. So here I'm going to call employee dot id. Okay, so this is how we define the unique key for the row. And after that, within a row we have td, right? Table data. Within a curly braces, employee dot id. So let me copy this line of code, paste it 3 times, and let me change the attributes. Employee dot first name, similarly employee dot last name, and then employee dot email. Okay, that's it. I mean, very simple, right? So what we have done, we have retrieved employees object by making a REST API call, and we have set that response to the employees state object. And here within a table body we have used a map operator here to iterate over a list of employees, and here we have used a row, table row, and just we have dynamically displayed each employee from the employees array. Okay, and this is the syntax to just display the value of the object. Okay, employee.id within a curly braces, employee.id, first name, last name, and email. That's it, guys. Very simple. And just save the file. Now let's check what is missing. So we have used use state and use effect hooks, right? So we have to import these 2 hooks at the top, comma, and within a curly braces just use state, comma, use effect. Okay, great, and just save it. That's it. I mean, whenever you use hooks in your functional component, so make sure that you import at the top. Now here you can see input, so we are not going to provide any input, so go ahead and remove this. Perfect. So once we create an employee component with all the logic, then we need to import our employee component in our root component. So go to app.js, and here I'm going to get rid of this code and just import the employee component over here, and just save it and go to the node terminal here, and let's see if there are any compilation error. So let me save this and also the employee component, Okay, there are no errors. And go to app.js. It says at line number 8 logo is undefined. Okay, so yeah, so let me remove this, it is not required anymore, and just save it, and there we go. So there is no compilation error, guys. So let's head over to the browser and let's see how it works. So in a browser you can see that employee list page is displayed successfully, but there is no data populated. Okay, so let me check the error. Inspect and go to the console, and you can see CORS policy issue. So this issue we typically get, right? So because our Spring Boot application is running on port 8080 and our React application is running on port 3000. So both the applications are running on different ports, so browser should report this issue. So in order to resolve this issue, what we can do is we can go ahead and we can add one annotation, that is cross origin annotation in Spring Boot application, so that whatever the client that going to access the REST API should be allowed to access the REST API. So in order to do that, what I will do, I will go to the IntelliJ IDEA, okay, and I will stop the server, and I will go to the employee controller, and here at the top we can use add cross origin annotation, and here we can define the URL, I mean the client URL that we can allow to access the REST API. So the URL is, so go ahead and just grab that URL. So let me copy this and paste it here. If you want to allow multiple clients to access the REST API, then you can just go ahead and you can define the URLs separated by comma. Okay, so in our case we are going to only allow the React application to call this REST API, so we provided only the React application client URL here. Okay guys, just save it and start the server again. Okay, our application is up and running, so go to browser again and refresh it, and you can see here our data is successfully populated and employee post name is not populated. So let me check if there are any issues. I mean, go to employee component, and here we go. So look at your first name, the R is missing. Okay, first name. Okay, now save and go to browser, and you can able to see here first name is displayed properly now. Alright, this is how we create a React application with React hook to display a data on the page. Okay, I hope you understood the the flow, how we can build a full stack application with React and Spring Boot, and how to use a React hook. Okay, pretty simple guys. We have used two hooks. One is use state, another is use effect. So use state hook is basically used to provide a state in a functional component. So we use only the state in a class component, right? In order to use state in a functional component, we can use state hook. And similarly, use effect is used to provide a side effects for functional component. Okay, so in case of class component, we use component did mount, component did update methods, class lifecycle methods, right? In functional component, we can use effect hook to provide those functionalities. Alright, it's pretty simple. Okay, so let me know if you have any queries or questions in a comment section below. And if you are new to this YouTube channel, then consider subscribing, and yeah, give a thumbs up to this video. Thanks for watching guys. I will see you in the next video.